In Activity 7, Lunar Landforms, students learn how the surface of the moon looks and feels and reenact the cratering of the moon's surface by bombarding pans of powder with space rocks. They first examine photographs of the moon's surface for clues to its features, then guess what might have caused the moon's surface to look the way it does, and create a model of the moon's cratered surface to discover that the craters were caused by the impacts of rocks from space. You will need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 7, bar magnets, magnetic marbles, aluminum pans, package of powdered cocoa, package of flour, set of moon surface photos, moon from space poster, near-side moon map poster, and bags of fine sand. You will also need to provide boxes of crayons, newspaper, sifter, and a spoon. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 7 for each student. Clear some floor space for students to make their moon models. Place several sheets of newspaper on the floor to facilitate cleanup. Pre-sift the flour. The finer the flour is, the better the model will be. Display the two posters and the photographs of the moon's surface. Each team of 2 will need 1 aluminum pan, 1 magnetic marble, 1 bar magnet, and a box of crayons. To begin the activity, ask students to recall what they learned in the last activity about the moon's environment. Then, define lunar as having to do with the moon. Point to the display of moon posters and photographs and ask students to describe what the moon looks like. Point to several of the mares on the posters and ask, what do you think these dark patches are? These areas are called seas or oceans. Read the names of several of the seas and oceans as you point them out on the poster. Ask, why do you think the words sea and ocean and rain are funny names for places on the moon? Students should remember that there is no water on the moon, therefore no seas or oceans. Explain that these areas were named a long time ago, before people knew that there was no water on the moon. From Earth, these dark spots looked like giant bodies of water. Today we know that these seas are actually large, flat, smooth areas of the moon. Next, point to several of the large craters on the map and solicit ideas as to what they are. Tell students that these round pits on the surface of the moon are called craters. The moon is covered with trillions of craters. Some craters are very small, less than a foot wide, and some are very big, larger than an entire state. Some of the biggest craters are named after famous people. Smaller ones are named after the scientists who first saw them. Ask students, what do you think made these craters? Accept all answers, then tell students that they are going to make a model of the moon's surface to learn how these craters were formed. Divide the class into teams of 2 and distribute the materials. Have students place their pans on the newspaper. Fill each pan about halfway with sand and ask students to gently smooth out the surface. Then fill each pan almost to the top with flour. Again, carefully smooth the surface. Finally, completely cover the top of each pan with a thin layer of powdered cocoa. Students should not touch this layer. Tell students that the powdery material in the pans represents the dusty surface of the moon. Be sure to remind students not to taste any of the materials in the moon model. Next, direct students to take turns dropping the marble into the pan from a height of about 30 centimeters. Remove the marble with the magnet, being careful not to further disturb the powder in the pan. Have each team member do this until the surface is heavily cratered. When students have finished, ask, what does your pan of powder look like? The pans of powder should look like the surface of the moon. The dropping of the marbles caused craters in their model, which appear similar to the craters on the moon. Then ask, what do you think made the craters on the moon? Accept all reasonable answers, then lead students to recognize that the moon was hit repeatedly by objects from space. Explain that there are rocks flying around in space. Every once in a while, one of these rocks will hit the moon. When this happens, the rock leaves a large pit or crater on the surface of the moon. Explain that the size of the crater is determined by the size of the rock and the speed at which it's traveling. Distribute a copy of Activity Sheet 7 to each student and a box of crayons to each team of 2. Have students draw what their moon models look like and allow them to name the craters and seas on their model. Finally, ask students, what do you think happened to the rocks when they hit the moon? Students will probably guess correctly that, unlike the marbles in their models, the rocks broke apart on impact. Explain that when the rocks hit, they broke up into many tiny pieces, including those the size of sand and dust. This layer of sand, dust, and rocks covers the moon today. Tell students that in the next activity, they will get to see what the soil and rocks on the moon look and feel like. To conclude the activity, carefully dump the contents of the pans into a trash can. Rinse the powder off the pans and magnets. Reseal the flour, cocoa, and sand, and return all materials to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.